Christian uh, Christian conduct. Verse 7. For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself. For whether we live or we live unto the Lord, whether we die unto the Lord, whether we live, therefore, or die, we are the Lord's. For to this end Christ both died and rose and revived, that he might be Lord both of the dead and living. None of us live to himself, and no man dieth to himself. And generally quoted as a proof text that their lives affect others. However, that thought is not in this passage. The fact is that we as Christians cannot live our lives apart from Christ. Whether you live, you will have to live to Him. Whether you die, you will have to die to Him. Our Christian conduct is not gauged by the food spread out on the table, but by the fact that our lives are spread out before Him. That is the important thing. One day we are going to have to give an account of the things we have done in this life. For we must appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in this body according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. Second Corinthians 5 and verse 10. At that time, it will not be a question of the meat you had on the table. It will be the question of your relationship to Him when you sat down at that table. You can be godless without meat, and you can be godless with meat, of course. Christ's death and resurrection are given as grounds for him to exercise lordship over both the dead and the living. Verse 10. But why dost thou judge thy brother, or why dost thou set at aught thy brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. For it is written, As I live, saith the Lord, every knee shall bow to him, and every tongue shall confess to God. So then every one of us shall give an account to himself to God. Why dost thou judgest thy brother? You remember that the Lord Jesus said to that bunch of Pharisees who wanted to stone an adulterous woman, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. John chapter 8, verse 7. And not one of those boys threw any stone that day. My friend, you and I need to recognize that we have to give an account of ourselves to Him. I'll be honest with you, that disturbs me a little. I am wondering how I am going to tell him about certain things. So I can't sit in judgment upon you. I'm worried about Vernon McGee. Verse 13. Let us not therefore judge one another anymore, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block on an occasion to fall in his brother's way. Paul is going to develop the thought that our conduct has to be for the sake of the weak brother. If I am traveling in the same car with a fellow who believes he should not travel on Sunday, I'm going to have to stay with him, not because I agree with him, but for the sake of the weak brother. Now, J. Vernon McGee, he skips verse 14 and about half of verse 15, but I'm going to read it for you. I know I am persuaded by the Lord Jesus that that there is nothing unclean of itself, but to him that esteemeth anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean. But if thy brother be grieved with thy meat, now walkest thou not charitably. Destroy not him with thy meat for whom Christ died. Since Christ was willing to die for the weak brother, certainly we ought to be willing to refrain from eating something or doing something that would hurt him in his Christian walk.